All right, we're back in the studio here in Atlanta, and we have the rock star of the hour, none other than Mr. Dewayne Hart, joining us. This has been a great series. I know I've been enjoying it, and today's topic is right in my wheelhouse, as well as I'm sure a lot of our listeners. If you own a business, been in business, work for a business, this is it. Let's make it happen. So we're going to be talking about cybersecurity tips to protect your business. Welcome to the show, Dewayne Hart.
It's always great being here, Rich. Yeah. Businesses are at risk. But you know what? Let's just start it off by saying that one of the focuses I've always said is that cybersecurity moves everywhere on like every platform you can think of.
Yeah.
Okay. So to all the listeners out there, take some good notes and activate your cybersecurity mindset, because this is going to be a great topic discussion.
And I mentioned Dewayne Hart joining us on the show. He is, if you haven't already heard the name, in cybersecurity, he's kind of the top dog. You're kind of the deal, right? In that space, right? So we're talking, Dewayne is the host of the Chief of Cybersecurity podcast. He's also written the book on the topic, the cybersecurity mindset. And he's here joining us in the studio today. So you mentioned business. So I mentioned, if you're in business or thinking about a business, a lot of businesses, there's a lot of hats they have to, and, things they're juggling, right? Of, getting the business started, the viable product, the viable marketplace, the customers, you're managing customers and customer challenges, getting your product into the pipeline and your internet, right? And that's where you're going to talk about, unless you're doing, I can't think of a business that's not using the internet today, right? In some shape or form, because even if you're not selling online, you're dealing with customer emails and communication, shipping, logistics, and so forth. That all goes through that pipeline. And if speaking of pipeline, imagine like a hose, a kink in a hose. If that happens, you're kind of up the river without the paddle, right?
Right. It's because the ultimate strategy is to understand the architect of cybersecurity.
Okay.
So when I speak about the architect of cybersecurity, I'm talking about all those intricate pieces: business, operations, customers, and all the legal aspects that goes along with the businesses, and how all of those integrate into cybersecurity itself. Because one of the ways I've always thought that a business can strive for success when it comes to cybersecurity is to really have an in-depth view of your visibility. Okay. What is it that you actually own? What are the assets out there? Who are your customers? What's the state of your systems? If you don't know these intricate things about cybersecurity, then you set yourself up for failure. One of the topics in the cybersecurity mindset is always talking about that 360 degrees of security visibility. And that is important because that allows you to sit back and think about all the intricate pieces that actually operate your business when it comes to cybersecurity.
Yeah, keeping all those assets up to date. And that changes on a pretty frequent basis, right? So you really have to have a team assigned, whether it's internal or you're contracting a company to kind of monitor all that for you, right?
Yes, because the whole premise is to reduce risk.
Right.
Now, every organization is at risk.
Yeah.
I am not here to say that if you put 1 million people on staff that your company is going to be 100% safe. No, it's not going to happen, because technology is always changing. So what a business have to do is go realize their position in cybersecurity, because a business serves as a medium between hackers and their customers.
Right.
Because as your customer base increase, as your technology space increase, that also means that your attack surface will go increase as well, because your attack surface is saying that, okay, you as a corporation have 1,000 endpoints,
right?
All your computer service and everything else, right?
Right.
Now you move up to 1 million. Now you have 1 million endpoints, so that means that your attack surface increases a lot, and the more chances of being infiltrated has pretty much increased. But you can counter that when the concept of increasing protection and lower risk is in place. Because as you bring on these different services and these different assets and these different customers, that's when you have to integrate cybersecurity in the process, because you don't integrate cybersecurity once you get everything up and operating, right?
Right.
Because it's not smart. It's not great business sense.
Right. So we were talking before the show about what you kind of just alluded to was as your exposure escalates and elevates, which is great for business, right? So that's the yin and yang, right? So you don't want to be the best kept secret in your industry. You want everybody, as especially your target audience, to know about, here's what we do, here's our service, here's how to get in contact with us, here's how to do business with us. That's great for business, right? To have that kind of exposure in the marketplace. But also at the same time, the yin and yang is that exposes yourself to the cybersecurity hackers, right? So you get on the radar. You want to be on the radar of your customers and your marketplace, but that's the trade-off. Now you're on the radar on their blip for the hackers, right?
Yes. It's about having a balanced cybersecurity approach. Right. Balance means that you don't really take one area more so serious than the other one, because they all operate together to go form the cybersecurity DNA.
Right.
Okay. Because, let's just think about this for a second. If we take 24 blocks and we stack them up based on every aspect of cybersecurity that a company has to face,
right,
and they all are connected. So that means if one of them fail, all the rest of them fail as well too, because those are your genetic makeups for cybersecurity. So I always like to make that statement in order to highlight the picture, is that the balanced approach works well, because you have to make sure that you keep eyes and ears or your visibility up and operate. Now, business are challenged to do that because a lot of times, their customer base and, the technology is outgrowing their people, and, the rapid speed of cybersecurity is probably outgrowing them as well.
Right.
So
we talked about the show about this, the tips to protect your business in cybersecurity. So we covered a couple. So we talked about, keeping your assets up to date. We talked about your exposure. Now let's talk about another tip that I think should be on everybody's radar: disaster response plan. To test it. So what's involved? What does a disaster plan look like for a business?
What a disaster recovery plan is supposed to help you recover when you have an emergency situation. Let's say if a system was to go down offline,
right? And
your disaster recovery plan should be activated, and it should be seamlessly activated in a way that no one knows that your system went down, right? And it should go from like backup to like your recovery stage and so forth, right? Because the premises is to ensure that all your vital critical systems that you have can actually stay up and operate. And this is where the availability principle comes to surface, because you have customers that are working on the opposite end that actually depend on your system. Let's just say, for instance, if you got a primary database that is located in the city of Atlanta,
right,
and let's say you have two other backup database centers that are located in New York and Washington, D.C. And let's say that if the city of Atlanta was to go offline, well, one of those backup places up in New York or D.C.
should automatically kick in.
Okay, failover, right?
Right.
Now, there have been times when it don't happen. And now this is the reason why it don't happen, because these organizations may not be auditing their disaster recovery plan throughout an annual basis.
Right. You have to revisit that, because it could be not just hackers, but it could be environmental impact.
Yes.
Right. Weather phenomenons or what have you. Right. So that's great on that. Let's move on to another topic, because we want to cover as many points as possible, talking about tips to protect your business. So let's talk about, we probably not a lot of time on this one because you've covered it so many times in previous episodes, but this is a good point to mention about the employee cybersecurity awareness, right? That hacker's hat, right? And that involves text, email alerts, regular training. Kind of hit a couple of points on that real quick before we move on to the next point.
It's simple. you as a company has to make sure that your cybersecurity culture does support the organization and actually have a buy-in. And all of that goes into exactly everything you just stated.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Because if you have employees that are buying into the program, they will maintain their awareness and know that cybersecurity is very important. Because at the end of the day, that employee can actually lose some things as well too, because let's just say, for instance, if they hit the wrong button, then it could go to their own banking account,
right,
and change and actually give access,
right.
So what people have to understand is just because you're using a corporate system,
right,
that doesn't mean that when an incident happens, that it's only the corporation that would suffer. You as a person would suffer as well too, especially if it's a phishing attack or something like that, and it sends you to a bogus website.
Yeah, talk to us about phishing, because that was actually the nice segue into the next topic. So these can involve scam phone calls, SMS messaging. What are some? Do you have any examples or some red flags when phishing comes into play? And we're talking about not the fishing pole, whatever, at the river, at the lake, right? But for those people that might not be familiar with, how would you describe phishing in terms of cybersecurity attacks?
Okay.
What does that look like?
Phishing is like it's like feeding the user some bait.
Okay.
Right? So I'm going to bait you to go do something that is unethical. Okay.
Right.
Okay. I am going to have you to go to this website here,
right,
and I want you to put some personal information in here. Okay. So now when these phishing emails come out, this is why people need to pay very close attention to the domains at the end of the email.
Right.
All right. If it states, let's just say, for instance, cybersecurity@Microsoft.com.
Right.
Now, that's a legitimate email address.
Yeah.
But if it comes from somewhere like it states cybersecurity@MSM.com, because people don't pay very, very close attention to those domains at the end.
Right. Because
a phishing email is usually going to come from a source that's trying to get you to give up information or it's just for you to go to a bogus website, or they can put an attachment in there and want you to download. So you have to be cognizant of what you do.
Right.
All right.
Because a lot of times we get those emails with that. It's just a highlighted text in blue, and you go to click on it, and it's going to send you somewhere you shouldn't probably go. So what I generally do, I don't know if this is a good practice, I'll hover over it, and if it's a long, drawn-out URL, I'll avoid that. But somewhere within the email, their signature, whatever, there's the actual domain name service I may be interested in. I'll just search for that service and find out it's legit. Much like, when someone calls you on claiming they're from the bank and they want to update some information, it may be legitimate, right? But you don't take that call, don't pursue that, don't go down that rabbit hole. Call your bank, right? It's you got to keep the hat on, right? Yeah,
that's right. You got to keep the hacker's hat on,
right? I mean, is that a pretty good practice?
Yes.
Okay, that was a short answer.
You've been asking some great questions, Rich.
Exactly. So one of our last points before we move on to a couple of other topics is what's this acronym MFA for multi-factor authentication? What does that mean in layman's terms?
In layman's terms?
Yeah.
That means that you got more than one way to authenticate. Okay. Let's just say, for instance, username, password, and a token device or something like that. Right. Okay. So have you actually noticed that on some of these websites, right? When you go to a website and you put in your password, then it goes and sends you a code.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have to authenticate through like a secondary source.
Right.
Okay. Once you put your username and password in, then it could send you a text or something like that there. So you have to authenticate. So that's where MFA comes in.
Okay.
Now with certain companies, like the companies, they will go give you a token device. All right. And there's a certain code on that token device that you have to enter as well too.
Right.
Okay. Besides your username and password.
Just another level of security.
Yes.
Right.
It adds another level.
Sometimes kind of annoying from the consumer side for the user experience, but it should, that extra 5 seconds reassures that somebody is kind of looking out for your better interest, right?
Yeah, because the use of a username and password is secure, but you want to be as secure as possible by just adding another level there, and that's where MFA comes into place.
We got a couple more minutes here. Let's talk about switching gears a little bit in terms of solutions to some of this, and talking about in terms of business. One of the issues is a lot of businesses, like we mentioned at the top of the hour, there's so many moving parts to make a business successful. One of the challenges, they don't really have the resources. Sometimes this is all good points, but sometimes they don't have the resources to deter these cyber threats, right?
No.
So
companies don't, but that's why they have to balance out their scalability, because as they start to upscale, that's when you have to look at cybersecurity and say, okay, am I focused and am I aligned with cybersecurity itself? Because as the company grows and the company starts to bring on different clients and the company start to gain more business, then that's when your cybersecurity footprint is going to grow. And, you have to have some processes in place. Now I've always thought that one of the other things that a lot of companies do is that they would outsource work,
right, to
like a third party. Maybe it's a company that is just directly focused on cybersecurity itself. That kind of works as well too. But a lot of that depends on the company,
right,
and it depends on their budget,
right.
And you have a lot of companies that are able to survive because cybersecurity and IT is a segment, or is it a department located on the inside of their company?
Yeah, I guess you hit that tipping point of the scale of the size of your organization, whether it warrants having in-house. But those the services providing, where you can outsource that, much like you outsource payroll. A lot of companies, even small businesses, don't want to deal with the taxes and the W-2s and all that process. Much like you could change your own oil in your car, right? It's probably easier just to do a quick oil change. This kind of alludes to there was a ISC cybersecurity workforce study, and one of the things that came out of there was they were talking about the size of the workforce in terms of cybersecurity is 65% below what it needs to be.
Right.
And you talk, you had a YouTube live stream as well as in your book and other podcasts. You talked about that there's a high demand, right? That's the good news. There's a lot of high demand for people in this industry as experts, right?
Right. This is part of workforce modernization. I've actually made a large statement about that in the cybersecurity mindset. Is that now cybersecurity is growing, and organizations spend an enormous amount of time on trying to upgrade their technologies and their business processes, but they seem to forget about workforce modernization. Now with workforce modernization, it goes beyond certifications and education. It's just the fact of teaching people how to do their job. Right. So the workforce itself is slowly pacing behind because of the rapid increase of the cybersecurity need. Some organizations do not even have all the skill sets, but it's hard to find a candidate with about 25,000 skill sets.
Right.
See, that's what the problem.
Right.
The problem is this because you have a lot of technologies and you have a lot of business processes in place, and trying to find one person that can fulfill all of that can be kind of hard. Now, the larger companies are good with this because they can have a focused skill set.
Right.
Okay. Smaller companies, you actually have to almost build a robot is what I call it, right? Well, you got that one person which is a jack of all trades,
right? And
it's increasingly harder to go and do that. So when the cybersecurity starts to grow, that's when a company has to modernize. Part of that modernization is to work with your talent management systems and working with your recruiters, and making sure that your recruiters are asking the right questions,
right? Because
if they're not asking the right question, you may lose out on a perfect candidate,
right?
Or or you may bring on the wrong candidate.
Yeah. I would imagine in some of the smaller companies that their IT department is also managing their cybersecurity. Does that make sense? Or
yes,
that's probably viable early on, right?
Yeah, the structure is usually under the IT department itself and scaled out from like the CISO, which is the Chief Information Security Officer. All right, then you kind of have an application, networking, database, and your help desk, which is your client services. So when we look at these organizations, a lot of the architect falls under cybersecurity because cybersecurity is the fabric of everything.
Right.
All right. So it falls in those organizations, but that's why a lot of organizations likes to do a lot of information sharing and cross training, because it's hard to get that robot.
Exactly. Yeah. On that note, I don't know if there's any other points you wanted to hit as we wrap up here. Any closing thoughts in terms of businesses looking to build a more robust security system?
Yes, go out there and purchase a cybersecurity mindset, because the cybersecurity mindset serves as a responsibility to go and to close those gaps. Some of the same problems that you and I have spoken about today.
Right.
I actually lay out a thinking model and helping businesses understand from the initial process that you put employees on board and building that culture,
right,
up into looking at the risk factors that you deal with, and then transforming your corporation, where you look at digital modernization and also looking at workforce modernization and bringing those intricate pieces on board can kind of help you build a picture, and so that you can see how to connect all the different dots together,
right,
and drive cybersecurity. Because the purpose of the cybersecurity mindset is to go make readers think. Because if people can think, then they can make wise decisions.
Right. Good note to close on. And again, if you're in business and what's keeping you awake at night, right? Is it the lack of customers, or is it something with your product or your widget? But that can all be in place. But if it's like insurance policy as well, right? If you don't have cybersecurity, that's not on your short list. You need to add that to your list. And Dewayne Hart is a great resource for that, not only for his podcast, some of these episodes we've recorded, as well as his YouTube live stream. But he mentioned his book, and so Cybersecurity Mindset, that's kind of like a playbook or a blueprint or a checklist. So you can go into within the book the subject that you need to kind of be cognizant about, right? And check that out. So all of that's available at DewayneHart.com. So Dewayne?
Well, Rich, you actually stole the show, and you said everything that needed to be said. The only thing I like to say is that when you think of the cybersecurity mindset, think about your favorite football team.
Okay.
Right? Offense and defense strategies is pretty much what you get. And if you look at all the coaches, they always have a play sheet, right?
Right.
Okay. Hey, the cybersecurity mindset is your play sheet, is your playbook, is your resource guide.
I like that. You've never mentioned the sports analogy. That's a great analogy, because in business, your offense is making money, right? And making your product viable, your customers, making your employees happy, and so forth. But if all that's in place and your defense is not up to snuff, right? You're going to have a problem, winning the game.
Yes,
the game of business.
Yeah,
if you will.
Yeah, because it's trying to strategize a way to score or to stop hackers from scoring.
Right.
All right. But you can only do that when you have a resource guide, or if you have a playbook in place, because hackers have a playbook, right?
Right.
And what they do with their playbook is that they know how humans approach cybersecurity, and they know the current state of technology. So they go and draft plays. Okay, so we find somebody that hates that company, and he likes to sit in the bar every day and talk bad about his company. So let's see if we can do some social engineering, and let's see what we can find out. And then after that, maybe we can score a touchdown.
How about a cybersecurity tailgate party? That sounds good to me. Sign me up for that one. All right, Dewayne, we'll see you on the next episode. Rich Casanova again here. Check out DewayneHart.com. We'll see you on the next show. And till then, have a great one and keep your business safe, cybersecurity safe.